Hey guys, here we go into a new kind of series that I'll be doing. I guess I'll be doing a lot of videos for this one too. This is a really interesting series. It's actually a tournament organized by I don't know who, but there's going to be 4 other fighters in the fight. And since this is the first one that I'm doing film study on, it's going to be very difficult to say, oh, this will match up well against this fighter, this will match up well against this fighter, you know, if he gets to fight this guy or this guy, or even in his next fight. But that's not important. We're just going to be looking at his skills, and then we're going to be looking at his next opponents, who I don't really know a lot about. And we're going to do like some keys to victory, you know, who I think is going to win. And I think actually by the end of me doing these 4 fighters, I'll have a prediction for who I think is going to win the whole tournament. Spoiler alert, it's probably Usyk. He's probably just going to smash everybody. He's so good. And it's refreshing to see this level of skill in boxing knowledge at this weight class. You know, a lot of times when you have really bigger fighters, like the bigger fighters, they, especially nowadays, they just don't use the level of skill that other fighters in lower weight classes have to, because when you're this big and you land a punch on someone's chin, you know, you're very likely able to knock them out. So it's really refreshing. But anyway, we're going to go ahead and get into the video. We're going to talk about the kinds of things that Usyk does well. You know, so right away, noticing about his guard, right? Back and forth, right? He's moving around a lot. Feints. He's got a good feint right there. And notice Marco Huck, though, right? He's not moving. He doesn't have an active guard. And his head is sitting in one place, right? It's only 10 seconds into the fight, right? But as he does throw these punches, even though he's not really setting it up, he did have a feint before, right? God, this guy's actually really quick, right? Let's see if that punch even lands. He moves off the line. Look at how when he shoots that jab, it's not just that, oh God, it's not just he's moving in and out, right? So a lot of times you'll see fighters with an in and out style. They'll come in and out, they'll move in and out, but he actually is taking an angle on his opponent, moving off the line. So even though it's not set up and it's dangerous, right, you can time him. He does a good job of getting off the line, so you may still miss your punch, as we saw in the film study with Sergey Kovalev versus Shabransky. Even though Kovalev was timing him on that jab in that one instance where Shabransky moved off the line, the counter completely whiffed, right? So there's a level of defensive responsibility in spite of the fact that he hasn't begun setting his punches up yet. So moving on, again, in and out style, you know, I'm not against this style, right? And it's all in how you use it. As we saw in the film study that got taken down by Top Rank, go fuck yourselves. Julius Ndongo has an in and out style. And Julius Ndongo got the crap beat out of him by Crawford, because any decent fighter, you know, is going to be able to take advantage of it, right? So you'll have to see how they go for it, right? Now, Julius Ndongo didn't have any of these feints, right? So coming down, feinting right there, and feinting low, right? Notice how he feints low with this jab to the, or with this feint, right? And look at how it brings Marco Huck's gloves down, right? Very interesting, right? Showing you that very likely he's looking to set up shots to the head, right? Again, more feints, changing levels, and look at where Marco Huck's gloves wind up after that. You know, look at how low they wind up being. Now a couple probes, right? The video quality is not super great. I apologize for that, but again, moving off the line, probing with some jabs, right? And very interesting. As soon as Marco Huck comes forward and gives him a little feint, immediately Usyk moves away, right? Knowing that that's his opportunity to set up punches. Now, Usyk, very smart, right? Look at how he uses his jab right here. Is he punching his opponent right here? No, he's not punching him. He's not exerting himself. He's not using any energy, and he's not committing to this posture, right? He doesn't know if Marco Huck is looking to counter. He doesn't know if Marco Huck is looking to time his jab or figure out his rhythm. He doesn't know what Marco Huck is doing to defend himself either, so he doesn't want to commit to punches, right? But he's able to use this probing jab and just stop Marco Huck from doing anything. Marco Huck's not even able to move forward anymore. Like, look at the trajectory that they had been on right here, moving Usyk back, and now before Usyk gets near the ropes, he immediately starts to try to take control of the center of the ring again by using his probing lead hand. And even though he's not doing anything, he's able to occupy and control the space between him and Marco Huck and make Marco Huck think, oh, he's going to set up a punch now. I either have to move back or anticipate what punch he's going to be throwing because he's not telegraphing it, right? And he's able to create space in the ring. And by this point, he's actually taking complete control over the center of the ring. And he's able to, again, come forward and land a couple jabs, right? All while moving off the line as well. You know, very smart fighter, you know, very, very smart. Again, a probing jab, moving forward, probe, probe. And I love the way that he slips, right? So he probes and he slips to the outside, and if you look at the way that he does it, look at where he puts all his weight. It's when he slips to the outside, he puts his weight on his right leg, right? So now if any other punches come back, right, boom, he can easily move back. See how he's able to transfer his weight from here, boom, and then pull back by shifting his weight back, boom, and he can move back and create space where he's not off balance and he's not in a position not to punch, right? Great technique from this guy, which is very rare from a fighter in this weight class, like I said. Again, right, slipping a shot, and this is beautiful, right? He slips the shot. He looks kind of out of position, right? But he's off the line when he's slipping the shot, and he's able to circle out because he shifts his weight. And Marco Huck has no ability to follow up on his punches. So in fact, even though it might look awkward, it might look like strange, and that's mostly because they're southpaw and orthodox, right? The way that their feet might tangle up while he's circling out right there as Marco Huck moves forward makes it look a little more awkward, but it's a great defensive responsibility right there from Mr. Usyk. Now again, looking at his active guard now, it's a little more active. He's feinting a lot, dipping. You know, I love this from him, right? Dips to his right, changes level, probes with his lead hand, and look at Marco Huck's guard. Look at how Marco Huck is bringing his guard down because he's anticipating jabs to the body. He doesn't want to get hit with a jab to the body or any punch to the body. Now he's bringing his gloves down, and that's going to allow, ooh, and then he does go to the body. So boom, boom, beautiful setup right here. So he's feinting him to the body to see what his reaction is going to be, and then he goes probing jab, takes an angle, right, and then goes to the body because by bringing the jab first, he's able to bring Marco Huck's gloves up, right? So Marco Huck was responding really well to the feints to the body by bringing his guard down, and Usyk says, hey, but I want to land to the body, right? So he throws punches up high to get him to bring his guard up, and then takes an angle, right? Now, the reason that this is different, right, from what like a fighter like Errol Spence does, and it's very subtle, right? It's not a lot. Like if you look at that, it's 2 jabs, right, and then take lead foot dominance and throw a left hand, right? It's very subtle. This is all the setup right here, right? Boom, feinting, dipping, feinting again, right, and then not actually punching your opponent, right? Like when you throw those jabs, right, he's only doing that to bring his opponent's guard up, right? He's not punching, he's not committing to it, he's not leaning in with his jab, he's not putting himself out of position, and he's able to take lead foot dominance and throw the shot because he's not committing to those jabs. They're not real jabs, they're only to occupy his opponent's guard, whereas Spence a lot of times commits to his jab and throws hard jabs. Sorry. And throws hard jabs, and that's why like Kell Brook was able to counter him so well. It's because he didn't realize that Kell Brook was going for the counter, right? The counter over the top with the hook. But what am I saying? Sorry, I got a text, guys. If Spence had been doing some feinting or some probing, he could have baited the counters, which he does do a little bit later on in the fight between him and Brook, right? It's more so that he still commits to the jab, but he ducks and tries to roll the counter, like making an adjustment in that manner, rather than baiting the counter first and then countering the counter, right? Which is very possible, right? Feinting the jab and then bringing your guard back up and throwing a left hand, or feinting it. And then taking a step back when he leans with the hook. There's a ton of different ways to do it. But the difference here is that Usyk is not he's not committing to the jab, right? And it's only used to bring Marco Huck's guard up. And he's also spent the first minute figuring out whether or not Marco Huck is looking to counter at all, right? And all that he's seen from Marco Huck is Marco Huck bringing his gloves up, right? Or bringing his gloves down to block punches. Huck hasn't shown any propensity to actually counter any shots. Now this is interesting, right? So we've got him shuffling forward, and Huck tries to shoot a jab, and that might be, that might be Huck's first opportunity of looking to counter Usyk, right, and timing him on that in and out style, right? So we'll have to pay a little more attention to that. But again, look at how Usyk, when he moves around the ring, right, he's got his guard up, which is great, right? That's fine. But look at how he's not just walking in front of his opponent, right? Look at how he ducks, he shifts his weight to his right leg, and then he pivots, right? He's not walking in front of his opponent. He doesn't have that very common plodding forward style where a lot of fighters will walk forward with their guard up and then they'll step with their jab, and that makes it like David Lemieux, right? The part of the problem why David Lemieux is so easy to time on his jab is because that's how he moves forward. He moves forward on that rhythm, and then he shoots his jab. And that's because he doesn't bend at the waist to walk forward, right, or to traverse the ring. Whereas Usyk, very, very knowledgeable, very experienced, knows that while this looks crappy, you know, I admit, like, it doesn't look great, but it's a very safe way to move around the ring and move around your opponent. Once you're in this spot, not only are you moving your head, right? Your opponent's not necessarily expecting you to move your head. They're also maybe expecting you to throw a punch from here, right? This is the exact same position that he would be in if he threw a left hand to the body or a left hand to the head, right? But it's moving off the line. So even if a counter came at that moment where he's moving his head, right, or where he's turning, he's able to move off the line as well. All right, let's see how that shakes out right there. So Marco Huck's first opportunity to come forward is off of a double jab, right? So he shoots the jab, first one gets blocked, and then the second one he ducks and gets under, and then goes for a hook to the body, and sorry, let's see, go back. Sorry, someone came into the room. Boom. He looks to, and it's interesting too, right? So so he's shooting the jab, and then it looks like he goes for a left hook, you know, that does look like it lands on Marco Huck. Nah, maybe not. In real time, it doesn't look as convincing, but in slow-mo, it looks like he touches him with it. And I'm not sure if that's like just to control him or if it is a punch or not, right? But he immediately moves back, right? Now, this isn't that great, to be honest. This is not exactly what you want to be seeing. Although, this is the first time that Marco Huck has made an attempt to counter him, right? So it's still an information process for both fighters. And he's doing the right thing because Marco Huck hasn't shown any propensity to counter, right? But when he moves back, he does do a good job of getting all his weight on his back leg. And then he smothers him, right? So it's a way to control your opponent. And then he tries to turn out, right? He tries to turn out, but Marco Huck is holding him, and it doesn't look like he was holding Marco Huck at first until he almost fell down. But going back to this instance, a lot of times what you'll see, and this is really interesting because he shoots the jab and then he shoots the next jab and he's bringing it back, and it might be because it's a probing jab, right? So let's watch it in real time just to make sure, because the first one looks like a real jab. The second one does look like a little bit of a probing jab where it's got less steam on it, but it's to control Marco Huck. And that's why he's able to kind of come back with this hook style kind of thing. But he doesn't control him. Notice he doesn't control him after he ducks the shot, right? A lot of times, like, and part of that also might be because his foot gets stepped on. You know, we're going to kind of chalk this one up to a little bit of weird stuff going on. But his instinct to smother Marco Huck after he moves back is on point, and that'll stop him from landing that left hand. Stop Marco Huck from landing that right hand. So again, turning, and now when he turns this way, boom, and he pivots, Marco Huck feints him and then throws a right hand to the body, right? Now, this is why some people might think that, oh, that's a bad idea to be pivoting and turning in front of your opponent. Again, it's a little awkward when you're a southpaw versus a conventional fighter. It's a little easier to move and get off the line when you're both orthodox or you're both southpaw. But I don't think that it's necessarily a flaw. You know, I haven't seen it very often, so it's very difficult to say like all the things about it. But we'll have to see where it goes from here. You know, and then again, shooting that jab, shooting that double jab, and then taking lead foot dominance, right? And it's interesting because we did just see Marco Huck look to counter him. Now, maybe there's like a reason why the counter was more effective last time that I'm not seeing right now, why Marco Huck doesn't even attempt it. But Usyk is very able to, again, probe him with the jab, right? What are you doing? Jab, and then throw that second double jab, right? That's a probing jab, not meant to land, so he can set up the right hand or the left hand to the body. Again, now this is better, right? So probing with the jab, right? Great control, right? He's got Marco Huck where he wants him, and now he doesn't want to give him any space in the ring, right? So he probes him with that jab, and then uses the second jab to kind of control him. Be like, oh, I was seeing him, like the first one was testing him, right? Oh, what's his reaction going to be? What's his reaction going to be? And then he makes a defensive movement, right? So, boom. And then Marco Huck looks like he's about to come in and counter. Whoops. Oh. And he ducks down like that, and immediately Usyk uses his lead hand to control him, right? To just put it out there and to control him and make him think something else is coming. And now, off of that little dip under, right, which Marco Huck might have been thinking was going to be he might have thought it was going to be a double jab and he could counter it again, right, like he did last time, or try to counter it. It was just a control, and it stopped him from coming forward off of his counter, you know. So now this is very smart of Marco Huck. You see him putting his lead hand out there and getting it away from his face, no longer being stuck in the high guard, right? Because when you're in your high guard and you're in a defensive position, you're only blocking certain punches, and that leaves you open for other punches, which means essentially that you're out of position, right? Because you've already committed to a defensive movement, and that's why it's been working for Usyk, right? And we actually really haven't seen very much out of Usyk because of the fact that Marco Huck hasn't come out of his shell, right? He hasn't looked to really do anything. So we've just kind of seen Usyk, you know, using very basic techniques so far. But Huck is now attempting to control Usyk's lead hand, right? Oh, beautiful, right? So now he's trying to control his lead hand. I'm just going to put it in slow-mo. Boom. Now he's trying to control his lead hand, right? Because the person who has control of the space between the two fighters is the one that's going to be able to set their punches up, right? So what does he do? Now he goes to touch gloves, right? So Huck is trying to control his glove, right? And off of that control, immediately, Usyk says, oh, we're going to touch gloves. And because Usyk has more experience in this style of combat and vying for control, he's able to throw a punch after that Huck isn't used to. He isn't expecting it, right? Even though Huck is doing the right thing, right? He's not on that same level of like chess, where that like an understanding of how important it is to have lead hand dominance, and how important it is, and all the things it allows you to do. But also, he's probably never fought anybody for lead hand dominance that's nearly as good as Usyk, or as knowledgeable. Oh, and then again, right? So this is beautiful, you guys. They touch gloves, and then off of that he shoots the jab, right? And then Usyk throws out his glove again, right? And expecting Huck to touch gloves with him, but he doesn't, and he goes into the high guard, and then allows Usyk to throw that right left hand to the body. Now, it doesn't look like it lands, right? But that's not the point either, right? It's that he's recognizing that where the opportunities are, and maybe it does land. I'm not sure. You know, but after that, you know, Huck looks to counter him, I guess, because he thinks that Usyk's out of position. But Usyk moving his head to the right, there's not going to be any hook there that's he's going to be in position for landing, not at all. Maybe like a uppercut to the body, right, but not a hook to the head, or even a hook to anywhere other than the left side of Usyk's body, right? But so off of that, I can't really tell what Usyk is looking to do, but he does a good job of turning out and getting away from Marco Huck. So boom, and he stays on the line, you know, and that's like interesting because maybe he was looking to come back with his own right hook, right? But you can't really tell. So boom, and then he looks to control Marco Huck. As you see, his left arm gets onto him, and I'm not sure if that's intentional or on accident, as Marco Huck's, you know, he's not the greatest athlete, but Usyk does get his glove on his head, right, and that stops him from being able to follow up his counters. You know, so far we've got like a really high grade for Usyk on his offense, right, a really high grade, but his defense is still questionable, aside from the fact that he's always got a responsible defense moving off the line. You notice that he never sits there and lets Marco Huck throw the more than one punch, right? So he definitely gets a grade there, and that is definitely important as well. So now, moving forward, shooting the jab, and Huck is trying to, again, keep battling him out for lead hand dominance, which is smart, which is very smart. Ooh, so that's interesting right there. This might be a very interesting and clever trap for Usyk later. So leaning to the right, and then Huck immediately says, "Hey, I don't want you leaning to the right anymore," and starts controlling the space between them, right? And that's exactly what it is. He's shooting that jab to stop Usyk from doing that, because that's Usyk trying to set up his punches, right? So we've seen that with Lomachenko. He'll slip to the inside, or he'll slip to the outside, and his opponent will shoot a jab, and then he'll immediately take an angle on him. He did this to Nicholas Walters and just smashed that guy. But that's a way to utilize the space between you and your opponent, because remember, it's also the same posture you make when you throw a left hand to the body, right, or even a left hand to the head. So he's able to he might be able to disguise those punches with those kinds of feints, with this probing head movement, right? And then the times he doesn't punch, he just moves off the line. But he might be baiting, and I haven't watched this fight before, you guys, so this is all live, but he might be baiting Marco Huck into countering or shooting that jab now, so he can throw a right hook over that jab, right? So boom, come in, transfer all his weight, and then transfer his weight back when Huck looks to counter him. A good feint right there. Huck's starting to follow him, right? So he feints him, boom, and then shoots another jab, and then moves off the line. Very smart, dude, right? So feints him, shoots the jab, ducks what could have been a counter, and then moves off the line to reset Huck, right? So Huck can't actually counter because he has to move back on the line. I think the slow-mo stuff will really help me too, not get picked up by so many fucking bullshit copyrights. So maybe that'll be something I keep going forward. Shooting the jab, and again, look at these jabs, right? These are not real jabs, right? Probing jabs, just gauging what Huck is looking to do, right? Boom, probe, taking angles, moving off the line while he does it, and he might be hoping that Huck is going to contest the lead hand dominance with him again, so he can shoot that left hand again. So I don't know what the referee's complaining about right here. I don't really care, but Huck coming forward and doesn't set up his shot, throws a probing, you know, not really probing, but a feinting jab, right? Takes lead foot dominance, and then tries to throw his own right hand to the body, right? But it's number one, it's telegraphed because he's changing levels, right? He's changing levels as he shoots the jab. But the most important part here is not that he blocks the punch, right? Which Usyk does, but as soon as Huck comes forward to start setting up his shot, immediately Usyk has his left glove up by his head and across his body, right? And then he's also using his right glove to control Marco Huck, so he can't come forward and he can't continue to set his punch up and further get Usyk out of position, right? So as soon as Marco Huck starts coming forward, he winds up being controlled and then basically forced to let his offense go, which Usyk is very easily able to read and block. Now, I don't know what he's calling him for, but we're just going to skip over whatever this is. Is it maybe some tape on his glove? I don't know. Who gives a shit? Okay, there you go. Exactly what I was just saying a second ago. So he probes the jab, gets Usyk to, or gets Huck to bring his guard up, right? And to try to fight him for lead hand control, and then shoots left hand to the body. Again, schooling Marco Huck and showing him that you don't get to control that space. And the control of that space has so far, okay, not bad. Oh, he kind of gets cracked right there. I think he's getting held, to be honest. But that space, having control of that space, as we just saw, Marco Huck has no control of that space and was not able to throw a punch that Usyk wasn't able to defend himself from. Whereas because Usyk does have control of that space, he's been the one that's been able to use the really simple feints and the really simple probes to get Huck just barely out of position to land a couple of left hands to the body. Now going forward, good head movement right there, rolls that shot. But now notice how he's not. Usyk is not controlling the space between them, right? A little bit, like there's a little bit of attempt, right, with this head movement, boom, rolling this way. But one thing that Huck has picked up so far is that when he dips down to his right, he's not throwing punches, right? He dips down to the right, and Huck says, oh, this is my opportunity to mount some offense, right? Because Usyk is not actually throwing punches. He's not looking to set up any offense, in spite of the fact that he did do that one time, that little kind of hook over the top, right? But Usyk able to get away from that shot, but he moves. Notice how he moves straight back. Now, we've seen great movement from Usyk this whole time, but notice how he moves straight back after he rolls this hook, right? And Marco Huck is very easily able to follow it up, control his lead glove, and then shoot another shot, right? But Usyk does get under it and then smothers him, right? Notice how he smothers him, and then he tries to roll out. Now, Huck does a decent job of, doing some holding and hitting right here to keep Usyk in front of him, but not really any clean punches. Maybe one of those was clean, like cleanly landed, but not sportsmanlikely landed, right? You don't want to be holding onto your opponent and throwing punches. That's not, in good faith of boxing or whatever. But then immediately, Huck, giving up all control of the space between them, and not really in a position to continue landing punches now, right? And now we have Usyk, right, coming forward, probing, probe, right, probe. And look at, this is beautiful, you guys. This is the most important part, right? Not the most important part, right? But this is also extremely important. Understanding that you can probe and you can gauge your opponent's reactions with more than just your jab, right? You can do it with a hook. You can do it with a right hand. You can do it with a right uppercut. You can do it with a left uppercut. You can do it with any punch, right? If your opponent's not reacting to those shots, sooner or later you're going to be able to turn those probes into real punches that your opponent's just going to gloss over. Just like how early in the fight, earlier in the round, Usyk would dip to his right and then pivot off, right? And Huck wouldn't do anything. Now you've got Huck reacting and throwing punches, right? So that's an opportunity for him to set up offense as well, right? In all the opportunities that, and that's like, I don't know if I'm explaining that right, but it's very similar. It's very on the same lines. But we're gonna go ahead and move on. So again, probe, comes forward, and then because he's showing him these probes, right, and he's not really reacting, right? A little hand control right there, right? Controlling his lead hand, right? But then he's able to just stuff that jab in there when he steps. Because of the probes, he's got Marco Huck thinking, right? And Huck doesn't know exactly what he's going to be doing. Oh, beautiful right there. So there's some defense right there, right? There's a discernible defensive skill that we've seen, aside from moving off the line. So he shoots that jab, boom, and Huck looks like he's countering, right? But he doesn't. He's not exactly countering, but after missing the shot, Usyk uses his elbow to control the lead arm of Marco Huck, right? And then just moves back, right? And then continues controlling his lead arm, or like battling for control, right? And then Usyk, again, winning the exchange because Huck doesn't know what to do from this situation. He thinks that they're just battling it out and looking for the opportunity to score punches, right? Or who's going to have the opportunity to set up punches later. And he doesn't realize that this is also an opportunity to punch because both of you are out of position technically. And he's able to catch him with a great body shot again. And he's using, you know, the amount of control that Usyk has. Like, if you look at this round, like, it's almost over, and not a lot has happened, right? Not a lot has happened, but Usyk is obviously the one that's winning the round, and he was able to make it look like a very tame round. It was very, I don't want to say boring, right? But there was a lot of control that Usyk had over it with his head movement, with his lead hand dominance, with his probing, with his feinting, and by constantly moving, having an active guard. Even though it's not as much like, not as active as some fighters, right? It's enough at this level to keep Marco Huck from wanting to set his offense up. And Marco Huck so far has only found very few opportunities to throw any punches. And that's not because Marco Huck is a bad fighter. That's just because Usyk is that much better than him with the feinting and with the probing and with the control that he's able to elicit over him, with all the opportunities that he makes Marco Huck think he's in danger, right? Even when he's not, even when Usyk's just moving around the ring, every time Marco Huck thinks he's in danger, he has to bring his guard up, or he has to do, you know, try to fight for hand control, or he has to do something. Anyway, this next little engagement. So can't really tell. I'm gonna have to do this one in real time. So it looks like, so he shoots forward, and I'm not sure if their feet get tangled, but you can see Usyk is moving forward. It does look like their feet get tangled, right? A little bit, like they kind of brick walling into each other. And Marco Huck looks to counter the jab of Usyk, but Usyk has his defense up. He's able to block the shot, and then very intelligently duck what could have been a right hook, right? And fold into him. Again, boom, ducking, using defensive responsibility, and then moving into Mark Huck to smother any other offense that might come. You know, so although these, you know, these are not clean punches. You know, this is Andre Ward style fighting, you guys. You know, you don't. Well, first off, let's see if, I guess at this point, you know, Usyk is the one that's holding, right? In previous engagements, it was Huck that was holding. So because Usyk's the one holding right here, these punches are legal and should be counted as landed punches, even though you're not getting any real power into them, right? Just slapping and stuff. Again, some decent, shoots that jab and then flares his elbow, right, to control the lead hand. Maybe a hook comes off of it and he's able to get his arm in front of it. And then again, while Marco Huck is looking to vie for lead hand dominance, Usyk is landing punches to the body because he understands the technique and the need for it and the weaknesses of it so much better than Huck does. So now Huck coming forward with the lead hand. Is there any way that he's going to land that shot? He doesn't set it up. He's not even really in range. And the only important thing here is that Usyk blocks the shot, and then he controls him with that lead hand. And look at how just sticking out his lead hand right there stops Huck right in his tracks, right? At that moment, as soon as that lead hand comes out, Huck thinks, oh shit, a straight left hand is coming, and then he has to stop engaging with Usyk. Now this is the part of controlling your opponent that you hardly ever get to see, right? How effective it is, because usually they'll do it and they'll put their arm on their, you know, their collarbone or their chest or whatever, you know, or they'll do something and they will, you know, move off the line or whatever. But in this instance, Marco Huck is the one that's recognizing that he might be in danger now, and you get a very clear representation of what might happen because of Huck's reaction to it. So, yeah, look at this active guard, too. Feinting, probing, right? Moving from side to side, right? Changing angles on him. You know, very active guard, and it makes it very difficult to gauge what he's going to be doing. Now, this is good defense right here. So, the straight right hand comes from Huck. Boom. He's able to parry it. right? Well, let's make sure. Move to the side, right? And then duck the possible counter, right? If it wind up being a left hook that comes, right? While controlling Huck's head, right? Beautiful. And then he's able to turn away and stop Huck from landing any punches. Again, you know, you're not able to land punches if you're not setting them up. And especially against like any good fighter, you know, you're not just going to be able to throw a punch and have your opponent just stand there, right? Everyone has common sense. If you walked up to any like random idiot on the street and said, hey, let's box, and you just start throwing punches at them, they're going to move, right? Whether they know the proper movements or not, they're going to move their head. They're going to get out of the way at least a little bit. But so far, you know, I'm not super impressed with Usyk's defense so far, right? Sometimes it does look a little sloppy. It looks like he's trying not to clinch with Huck or hold him, or, you know, be very physical with his control for his defense. We are going to do round 2 right now too, but his offense is superb so far. You know, he has control of the space between him and Huck. Huck doesn't have any opportunities to set up his own punches, and he's doing a great job. So moving on, shooting the jab and moving to his right, moving off the line, forcing Huck to move with him while he's taking lead foot dominance, able to land a jab right there. Now look at how much more active his guard is here. Boom, flaring his left hook, his left hand out there. So this does 2 things, right? Very smart, right? Boom. He brings it low, right? Makes him think it's going to be a jab to the body, and he's also able to see if he's going to react to it if it's a right hook, right? So he might be able to swing it down like that, get him to bring his hands down and throw a right hook. We'll see if he does that. Maybe that will be something he does. Again, very active guard, right? Coming in. And notice how he doesn't throw punches every time he steps with his shot, right? He does give feints, right? So steps forward, feints low, and then he's able to come in again because he got Huck to bring his guard out, right? To bring his left hand, or his left hand away from his face. He's able to land that jab. Interesting. So moves dipping to his right, baits the jab, and then controls him, right? So again, remember the last instance in the round where Usyk dipped to his right, and then Huck threw a bunch of punches and was able to press the advantage that he thought he had, right? So he does a very similar thing here and tries to move forward off of Usyk dipping to his right again, but Usyk just puts his glove out there, controls him, right? Makes him think, oh, this is a punch, or this is a setup, or this is a feint, or this is a probe, right? And it stops Huck in his tracks, and Huck is not able to have the same success that he did in the last round in that single micro engagement. Again, feinting, probing, ducking, changing levels, right? Boom, boom, gets him to bring his guard away, and then as soon as he brings his high guard up, right? Boom, lands a body shot. So both of them kind of vying for lead hand dominance. Ooh. So a probing jab. He gets him to commit to a counter and whacks him with a right hook. Beautiful boxing, you know. And that's interesting too, because Huck hasn't thrown very many counters, right? But this is the beauty of having being able to probe and being able to feint without committing to the shots, is you're still open to do whatever you need to do, right? If he had thrown, if he had thrown that jab as a real punch, right, Huck could have slipped to the inside and thrown this hook and landed it beautifully, right? But he didn't, right? And he winds up getting clocked with that shot. And it's not super clear whether that punch lands or not. But it looks like it does. It looks like it rocks his head a little bit. But talking about defense, right? So he throws that shot, and after he lands that shot, he ducks the possible right hand from him and then smothers him immediately. So I like this, right? This is like the most basic form of defensive control, is smothering your opponent and then controlling them, getting like clinching with them, right? We saw Kovalev doing it in the last fight when he would miss a shot, right? And then he would put his forearm on him and push him off or control him, or when he would miss a shot and then put his hand on his neck and then control his neck. Without clinching, though, he was still able to create space, right? So this is like a very basic style of that. You know, it was very popular was it 10 years ago? If you saw a lot of Freddie Roach fighters, Vanis Martirosyan, Amir Khan, all those fighters, when they would throw flurries, they would run in, bah, 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 and then try to clinch, right? I think Pacquiao was the only one that didn't really adopt this style because he actually liked the sport of boxing and he actually liked fighting. But anyway, very, you know, a very rudimentary style of control in which you're able to kind of mitigate your opponent's offense, right? And that's the most important part, right? It's not important that it's messy or it's ugly. Nobody wants to see clinching, right? It's bullshit, right? It's boring, whatever. But for Usyk, it's important because he doesn't want to get punched in the head by one of these big guys, right? So he's able to do that and stop the opportunities that Huck was attempting to set up by clinching him. So again, let's see. So again, active guard, probing, stepping with the jab, and I'm not sure if this left hand lands or not, but he takes lead foot dominance while probing with the lead hand, gets him to bring his high guard up and shoots a shot to the body, shoots a jab to the head, right? Again, controlling Marco Huck. And notice how he shoots this one at his opponent's gloves, and then he leaves it out there for that long so he can land that body shot. This is really interesting, you guys. So he shoots it up there, and look at how he shoots it at Huck's right glove and then controls him and then is able to land that body shot. You know, this is really interesting. This is something that we didn't get to see in round one, where he actually literally controls his gloves by holding them there, you know. Because you don't have to throw all the punches that you throw at your opponent's face. Punching at your opponent's gloves so they can't counter you is a very viable strategy, especially when you're looking to set your punches up. It's very similar to the block removal technique that was made popular by Floyd Mayweather, right? And the one that he does to Canelo Alvarez, and then where he pulls his glove away from his face and punches him in the head. But also that Vasily Lomachenko has also popularized. Very similar. And then very smart, right after that shot, boom, controls him with the lead hand, right? So Usyk showing that he's a much better fighter than he gave himself credit for in the round one, right? He did do a lot of control, right? But not a lot of it was after he would punch, right? A lot of it was just when Huck was actually looking to punch, right? And then he would control him. But this time showing that he's controlling his opponent after he punches, which is more than you can ask for. And then gives him another probe, beautiful probe, and then throws that right hook way around the guard. That first hook that he's ever thrown with his right hand, that Huck has no idea is coming because of the fact that he has his high guard up, and Usyk is able to keep his guard up there because of all the straight punches he's been throwing. Dips to the right, and I'm not sure on the timing on this actually. Oh, it's right as Huck is looking to move forward and set up his own punches. Beautiful right there. Timing him, trying to set up his punches, slipping to the outside, and then moving off the line. That's beautiful defense right there. Don't even allow your opponent to get his punches off before moving off the line. And that forces Huck to have to reset and look for another opportunity. Not bad right there, too. He's moving to the side. And look at how this time, when he moves to the side and he turns out, he was controlling Huck's glove, right? Boom. Touch his glove so he doesn't jab at you, right? And Usyk makes him think that, oh, maybe he's going to throw a punch. Maybe he's going to sit down and throw a left hand. Maybe he's going to throw a right hook, you know. And Huck is forced to stay at home because he doesn't know what Usyk's going to do. And unfortunately, popular boxing knowledge says, don't take risks. Fight safe, you know. And unfortunately for Huck, he doesn't know how to get this information. He doesn't know, right? He doesn't know that, oh, so if I throw a right hand at him right now, is he going to counter me? Is he going to throw a right hook? Is he going to throw a straight left hand? Is he going to take an angle and counter me? And he doesn't realize that in order to figure that out, all he has to do is put his glove out there. Ask him. You know, ask Usyk these questions. Say, hey, Usyk, hey, bro, what are you going to do if I throw a right hand at you? And All he has to do is put his right hand out there, just like Usyk did a few seconds ago, and probe with that right hand. Stick that shit in Usyk's face, right? Don't commit to it, right? Don't be ready. Don't be looking. This is not your opportunity for your Hail Mary, right? You're not asking questions of some guy who's, you're not going to ask these questions of this guy and expect to win the fight from the answer, right? You want to know what he's doing, and you want to set it up so that the next time you know how he's going to react, and you can feint, right? You give him a feint like you're going to do it again, and then you counter whatever he did last time, right? And that's called a setup. That's called a trap, right? But unfortunately for Huck, it doesn't look like he knows how to set up a trap, And then so far, the only offense that he had in round 1, we've seen right here, Usyk is able to take it away simply by using his lead hand to control Huck now. And now Huck has, based on what happened in round 1, Huck has no avenues of offense anymore. Usyk has taken them all away simply by controlling him. And again, I like this defense, right? Sees that Huck is trying to counter and set up a shot, and he winds up smothering him instead. Not allowing Huck to throw combinations at him. And I'm not sure if Huck is a big puncher. I don't know anything about Huck, to be honest. I've never been super interested in him. Again. So this is exactly, right? So he ducks down, right? And Huck immediately starts trying to set up his punches, but he's not even close to landing any of these shots because Usyk is able to turn this way and then pivot out, right? And it moves him off the line and far enough away from Huck with a very simple defensive posture, right? And this is something he's been doing all fight anyway, and it makes it so that he's completely out of position, it means Huck is completely out of position to actually land any punches. And then immediately back on his grind, right? Moving, dipping to the right, probing. Look at how active his guard is now, dipping, right? Probing to the body. And then as soon as Huck starts contesting lead hand dominance, Usyk goes back to probing. Probe, right? Dipping. Huck tries to land a straight left hand. For some reason, he thinks he's just going to be able to walk forward and land that shot. It gets blocked very easily because there's no setup. And then when he's coming forward, a jab comes out and stops Huck in his tracks. Stops Huck from continuing to move forward after throwing only one punch, right? Maybe he threw two left hands there, or two right hands there. But not able to set up his punches because as soon as he starts moving forward, Usyk is able to move off the line or control him with his lead hand, right? So Usyk doing a great job here. Again, Huck ducks down, right? And changes levels. And what does Usyk do? Immediately he controls him, right? And puts his lead hand out there to stop him from setting up his punches. Some more probing. Probe, right? No real punches. And then probes him with the jab again, right? Boom. And then slips the possible counter or the lead hand control from him. Lands again another body shot, something that that Marco Huck so far has no answer for. He doesn't know if he needs to be blocking to the head or to the body. And as soon as he starts bringing his gloves down, because this is a very obvious trap, right? Everyone's picked up on it, right? As soon as Marco Huck starts throwing or starts bringing his gloves down to block the body shot, Usyk's going to start going upstairs and knock him out. Decent job right there. So controlling his head, and then Huck looks to slip the control, right? Work his way around it, but while he's being controlled, and he makes that movement, then an attempt to set up his punch, right? An attempt to take away the control that Usyk has of between the space between them. Usyk just takes a step back and then goes back to controlling him, right? Again, dipping down, and now Huck does throw a hook, right? But again, he's not in position. If you notice Usyk, when he takes his angle, boom, and he's able to move back so easily and get out of punching range because he's moving off the line. Again, there's no way for Huck to land a shot right there unless he anticipates it and takes the angle before Usyk does, right? And then Usyk is able to, again, right? So he's out of position here, throws that hook, and Usyk controls him. Again, just putting the hand out in front of him, and it completely stops Huck in his tracks because now he doesn't know if there's a left hand coming behind it. He doesn't know what's going on. Again, same exact thing, dips to the right, takes an angle out, moves off the line, and Huck is not in any position to land any punches. And all that from Usyk having his back against the ropes. You know, he's literally against the ropes right there. Oh, he's up against the ropes again. And he's able to circle out and get away from that simply by using lead hand control and turning off. Boom. Oh, he does turn it into a trap. And I'm not sure if it lands super cleanly, but he dips to the right. And then notice how he doesn't move all of his weight, right? He dips to the right, and he's only baiting Huck to come in right there. That's fucking beautiful. Setting a trap off of it because he knows that that's when Huck thinks he has an opportunity. So slipping, boom, Huck bursts out of his guard and winds up getting clocked by that hook. You know, I'm not sure if Huck lands his punch or not, but that's not the important part. The important part is that Usyk understands the flaws in what he's doing, and he also understands the opportunities that Huck is trying to make present off of the patterns that Usyk is giving him. So he's able to give him patterns and then break those patterns, and that's very important for high-level boxing. Controlling him, probing, and again, right, Huck just throwing a lead right hand, gets blocked because he's not setting it up, he doesn't feint or probe, and it's also very predictable. This body shot one might land. I'm not sure. I'm not really sure. So moving forward, takes lead foot dominance. And look at how when he takes lead foot dominance, and now this is part of the importance of lead foot dominance, right? When you have it, you're kind of off the line, and his foot kind of gets tangled right here. But because he's in a position where he would be with lead foot dominance with his back leg, his center of gravity, where his body would be, is off the line basically to Huck, and Huck has no opportunity to land his punch right there because of where Usyk's body should be if their feet didn't get tangled up. More probing, and then finally actually lets a left hand go to the head. You know, I'm not sure if he thought that Huck was going to try and block a body shot, so he went upstairs. You know, so interesting right there. But Usyk looking like a very good fighter, you guys. Very, very good fighter. Again, ducks under the shot and is able to pivot and turn out. You know, not allowing Huck to throw any real punches. And again, probing, controlling him, and able to come back with the counter right there. And this is all because Huck doesn't know how to... Not only is Huck losing the battle for lead hand dominance, right? Which means that the only person allowed to set their punches up is Usyk. Because he doesn't know how to fix this, he can only throw punches on certain rhythms or certain timings, right? And create patterns, right, for Usyk. And when he doesn't, right, when he doesn't do that, he's only going to walk into counters like that, because he doesn't have the ability to set his punches up because he has no control over the space between them. Like right here, like this whole engagement right here, Usyk doesn't have any worry that he's going to get punched when he moves into this space, because every time he's moved into this space and Huck has tried to punch him or Huck has tried to control that space with him, Usyk has been able to land a punch against him, right? So now Marco Huck doesn't want to contest the space, but he doesn't know what to do either, right? So he just winds up being painted into this corner and eating a shot, you know? And then obviously looking to clinch, and this has been his best source of offense is in the clinch, right? So he does look to throw some punches. But again, right, probing, he gets Huck's lead hand away from his body, and as soon as he looks to contest it, he's able to land a shot. Boom. And Huck might actually land that body shot right there. It's not super important. But dipping down, right? And now this is interesting. So he dips down, and then Huck looks to take lead foot dominance off of that shot, and immediately, because he moves all his weight to his right leg, right? As soon as Huck starts moving forward, he's able to spring back and transition his weight to his back leg, right? because he transferred his weight in the first place, right, and get away from that. And as soon as Huck starts looking to set his shots up, Usyk is able to move away and get away from him. Now again, Huck doing some decent job on the inside, but some of it holding and hitting. But Usyk is very easily able to get off the ropes and take an angle and move off. Ooh, again probing. And I'm not sure if that shot lands actually. It looked like it landed the first time, but again, I think he's finally convinced Huck that it's going to be a body shot, and Huck brings his guard down a little bit. And I can't tell if the shot lands or not, but that's not important, right? Remember, whether the punch lands or not is not important, but it's the fact that he's finally convinced Huck that it's going to be a body shot, and he starts throwing to the head now. Ooh, some fancy stuff right there. So coming forward, lands that shot, takes an angle. Look at how he takes this very subtle angle, you guys. This is beautiful, right? So they're both on the line, right? And he feints him when he steps forward. So the whole fight he's had that in and out style. So this time he goes in, right? But he comes out at an angle, right? And Huck is still on the line that they were just on. And now Usyk's able to throw punches at him while he tries to regain his composure, and then takes another angle on him and is able to catch him with a couple of shots, And none of them look like they're like super clean, right? Huck does a decent job of just rolling and moving, right, and ducking. But that's not the point either. It's the fact that Usyk is so able to take these angles and move and create angles that put Huck into a poor position. Boom, boom, coming around the side, making him think again that it was going to be a body shot, I guess. So now he's feeling more comfortable throwing to the head. But very interesting, right? So things we learned about Oleksandr Usyk is that he's a master of control, right? Understanding how to control your opponent, using his lead hand, using the lead hand to control them, using his lead hand to set up his own punches, setting up his jab, setting up his cross to the body. He's starting to set up the cross to the head, but also his ability to stop his opponent from being able to set up any of his offense, right? Anytime Marco Huck would look to control him with his lead hand, he would find a way to land a punch, right? Because he understands that, touch gloves on that rhythm. So touch gloves, instantly transition into landing offense. Usyk basically just one step ahead of Marco Huck for the first 2 rounds of this fight, very easily showing some very high-level skills. Yeah, very good fighter, you guys. So great offense, obviously. Not as good at setting up his shots as Kovalev. Again, I think Kovalev is probably like one of the best, probably the best aggressive fighter. I don't want to say aggressive because, as we saw in that film study, most of his offense was counter-punching, right? But it's again, when you bait your opponent out of position so that you can throw your punches, you're still being aggressive. You're still the one setting the pace. You're the one making your opponent react to you, so you're still the aggressive fighter in spite of the fact that they were still counter-punches. But Usyk, a very good fighter, very solid. If you can count how many times he was out of position during the course of this round, or between the course of these 2 rounds on one hand. Very able to move off the line, very defensively responsible. Maybe some more rounds would be needed to kind of figure out exactly the level of defense that he has, because as we saw, just moving around your opponent or taking angles, there were opportunities for Marco Huck to maybe anticipate these things and catch Usyk, right? By knowing when he's going to take that angle, right? When he's going to take that angle and anticipating it and moving onto the line that Usyk is going to move to before Usyk moves there, right? So anticipatorily moving there. But also that's very difficult to do with as quick and sharp as Usyk is, right? So already having ways to mitigate that ability. And on top of that, understanding that that's when Huck is looking to set his punches up and countering him with the right hook. Anyway, let me know what you guys think in the comment section below. I'll be doing Usyk's opponent next, his next opponent for the Super Series. And thanks, guys.